guys, this is Karalynn Cromeens, and welcome back to the Quit Getting Screwed podcast, where we talk about all the ways not to get screwed in the construction industry. And one of the things I deal with on a daily basis for both my residential clients and my commercial clients is change orders, right? So we're going to dive in today and kind of go over change orders. First, we're going to talk about what exactly they are. Then we're going to talk about them in the residential setting and what that looks like and common mistakes that residential contractors make with change orders. And then we're going to dive into the commercial setting. When you're signing a commercial subcontract, what are the pitfalls you need to watch out for, and some examples and stories of things that have gone wrong so you don't make the same mistakes. All right, so let's dive right in. What is the change order? Okay, so change order in its most basic term is a modification or change to an existing contract, right? So when we talk about change orders, it means we're in a relationship with a builder or an owner, and we're going along. We already have a set price for the contract, and something has come up where we're going to either need to increase or decrease the contract price. In order to do that, for it to be legally binding and effective, we need to do it in writing, signed off on by both parties, which in this instance is done via change order. That's what it's called. So we're changing the order, or we're changing the price, or we're changing some term of the contract, right? And it could be, a change order could be, it doesn't have to be extra work or less work. It could be you want to add in the right to use pictures that you take on the project site on your social media, but you need to get the owner to approve that. So you do a change order that says, hey, this provision is now added to the contract. So a change order can be used to add or take things away from the scope of work, but it can also use to be changed the actual terms of the contract if both parties agree. So basically, a change order is a way to modify an existing contract. And what it requires is the written agreement of what's being changed and the signatures of both parties. So that way you have consent of both parties to change the contract. That is the only way that you can change an existing contract. Verbal request or anything like that that's not done in writing will not be effective to change or modify the existing contract, and which is why it's very important when we're talking about change orders that they be in writing. Otherwise, it's not going to be effective to change the terms of your existing contract. So that being said, that's what a change order is. All right, so for my residential contractors, there's a couple things we need to bring up here first. So one of the first things you need to have is, that I tell my residential contractors is, I would put in the contract like, hey, I am a very qualified contractor, but especially like remodel work or roofing work, when I tear into this wall or something might happen that I can't predict, even with the best experience. And when that happens, we may have to increase the contract price because of something we didn't expect. So being upfront, number one, that a change order process could happen for something unexpected. That way, when it does happen, you look like the expert that you are, as opposed to not addressing the fact that there could be things that you don't know. And then when it happens, they're like, well, why didn't you know about this? Are you not experienced? Do you not know things? So it makes them homeowners feel very comfortable when this happens. Oh, he told me that this could happen because, we can't see through the walls. And there might be something we find when we tear it apart that's going to cost more or increase the price. So first off, just being very upfront that, there are, and then also that a change order is going to occur when you want to upgrade something, right? Be upfront about the fact that, okay, here's your scope of work. Here's the grade of materials that we've approved. Here's what we decide on. You can always, go above that, but we're going to have to increase the price. And how we do that is via change order. And just be very upfront about how the change order process works. And that even if it's an unexpected change order, that doesn't mean you're any less of an expert than you are in the construction industry. But take the time up front to address that, okay, if these things happen, then here's how we're going to handle it. And we're going to have a conversation about what that looks like. The more we can manage expectations on how these things are going to happen, the less likely we are to get into a dispute later on, right? So, and then the next thing is for residential contractors is having the actual process for the change orders in your contract, or you can attach a change order form as an exhibit. So that way everybody's ready to go. So like, okay, in order to add add scope of work or add extra work, both parties are going to sign off on a document that describes the work and the amount to be paid. And then, how are change orders going to be paid? Are they going to be paid on the next invoice? Are they paid before the work is done? What are you going to expect from the homeowner when you issue a change order? When is that going to be paid? Before you do the work, and then in the next billing that you send to the client, being upfront about how you want to get paid for it is key as well. Another big thing is if you have a completion date or a scheduled completion date in your residential contract, and we add a change order that is extra work, right? We need to add in there extra days to extend the completion date. Because here's what will happen. And actually, I just had a client on the phone that I was talking to that this happened to. He signed a contract with a homeowner, but the homeowner drafted it because the homeowner is an attorney. So right there, already red flags. Let's be super aware of what was going on and have it looked by an attorney. Actually, it's always better if you have a contract that's yours and that you use all the time instead of letting your client draft the contract. Anyways, the attorney drafted the contract, who is the client, put a completion date in there. I don't think that there was no liquidated damages for failing to complete on time. But what happens is when you don't complete on time, so like if the completion date is August 1st, and we don't complete on August 1st, technically you're in breach of contract and you can be terminated, right? So unless we modify that date, in writing, signed off by both parties, it's not going to be effective to change the completion date. So what does that look like? So in this instance, the homeowner kept asking for these upgrades and things that would take longer. Sometimes we got change orders and sometimes we didn't. But even when we did get change order, we only talked about the increased price and not the extension of the completion date, because like some of the stuff that you've now ordered is on back order. It's going to take longer to get here. And so I can't install it. So that's going to push me back 3 or 4 weeks. And so from the appearance of the contract, we didn't modify the completion date. So when he didn't finish on time, say for August 1st, because the homeowner had all these change orders, it didn't really matter because we didn't change the date of completion. So technically the contractor was in breach of contract because he did not finish on the completion date. So if you have a contract in the residential setting that has a standard completion date or the amount of time the project's going to take, make sure when you get a change order that's going to require more time that you add it in there. It happens all the time that we have things that extend the project date, which is not uncommon. Just make sure that we get it in writing, via email or in accordance with the process that's in the contract. So that way it's effective and you're not in breach of contract when you don't finish on the completion date. And guys, the other thing too is I want to be very open about the fact that some people will set you up on the signed change order requirement, ask you to do things, tell you that they'll sign change orders later, knowing that you can't make them sign it later after you do the work if you didn't get it signed beforehand. I've seen it happen all the time. And like in this particular case, when the attorney who wrote the contract had a written change order provision, yet the guy kept asking for upgrades, and my client didn't ask for it in writing. And now he's going to turn the tables and say, I never approved that. You have to have change orders in writing to modify the contract. So you didn't, you're over budget. You didn't complete on time. Now I'm going to fire you and I'm not going to pay you what I owe you and hire somebody else. So there's decent people out there, but I don't ever get to see a good project. I only get to see the bad ones. There are predators out there who will ask you to do extra work without a change order, knowing that you can't get it after you already did the work. So that's a common mistake, is make sure we get the change order approved before we do the work, right? Or before we make the extra charge. If we're going to do an upgrade, it could be via text message. It could be via email. As long as it's something in writing approved by both parties, it'll be effective to increase the contract price, right? So, and don't do things for free, right? I know I hear story after story is like these clients, they're never happy, and I tried to do all this stuff to make them happy and they still were not happy. You're wasting your time. Stop doing stuff for free, right? If it didn't cost them anything, they do not value it, right? So you think you're doing all this great work and they're going to love it so much because you didn't charge them for it. They're not going to. They'll just keep taking advantage of you, asking you to do free things. I see it over and over again. So If it is something that's valuable, you think the client will enjoy. And here's the thing: you could give them a discount, you could give it to them at cost, but let them know it's an extra charge, and that you want to make them happy, and so you're discounting it, but don't do it for free. These guys don't value that. They just think it's part of what you should have done anyways, and it backfires because then they're still never happy. So yeah, if you're going to do something extra, get it in writing, signed off on before you do the extra work. So yes, change orders in the residential thing, first informing the client that it could happen. And if it does happen, here's how we're going to handle it. And just being upfront about the whole process, right, guys? The more we can be upfront about the whole construction process, especially on the residential side, the less likely we are to get sued later on. So, and that includes change orders, extending the schedule, being open and upfront, always taking their phone calls to try to explain things. All of that, I promise you, is worth the time you invest in doing it. Okay, so for my commercial contractors, a whole different ball game because you're signing someone else's contract. And so when I'm talking about commercial contractors, I'm talking about commercial subcontractors or contractors who are signing someone else's contract, right? And so it's kind of a different ball game because you're agreeing to somebody else's terms. And so what do we need to look out for? So the first thing in a commercial contract is we need to find the change order section and read through what it requires. Who can approve change orders? When can they approve them? How are they going to get paid? All of that. So, because there's some contracts that say my project manager can't approve change orders. Only, this person in the office can approve change orders. So being very clear about who and what is their process. Do they have a platform they're using? What is the process to get a change order approved, right? Knowing all that. Some really big things to watch out for on the commercial side, right? Is agreeing on a price, right? What happens if you can't agree on a price? So some of the contracts in the commercial world that I've seen that say you can't agree on a price is that you got to do the GC can make you do the extra work and will determine the price at the end of, you can go to arbitration and determine the price of the extra work. Well, that's kind of, you had to pay for it all up front and then wait till the end of the job and then sue them to get paid on a change order. Make sure if you see that provision, we try to negotiate. So what I try to do as much as possible on commercial contracts is like, okay, we're going to figure out a formula for how much a change order would be. Is like labor cost of labor and material plus 10 or 15%. That's the formula. That's what it's going to be. That's how it's decided. And so when a change order comes about, you can give them all the information on the cost, add your profit and overhead charge, and then that's the amount of the change order, right? So it's super easy and simple to come up with the amount. So that way we're not fighting about it later on, right? Another thing to watch out for that I've seen bite contractors in the butt is a provision that says, hey, we're going to send you a request for extra work via email. If you don't respond in 2 or 3 days with the increased price, you agree that it's not extra and you're going to just do it for no additional cost. So make sure we dive into these really specific provisions, make sure you understand them. If they're not something that you can work with, negotiate them, right? So, and especially in the commercial world, on the subcontracts, the first contract you get is everything they want, right? And so you have the right to negotiate fair terms because that first contract is everything that they want, and it's not very good for you, the contractor. So the change order provision is one of those provisions that we can work on negotiating and have, and it's not one-sided terms that are fair to you. It's something that's in the middle that we can both agree on and we can both run our businesses on and, go to work. So make sure we read that provision and negotiate. Another huge thing, same thing with commercial contractors. You can't just do the extra work and not let them know and then do a change order, because then you definitely won't get paid, right? So if you come upon something in the project that's going to be extra work, issue a request for change order and say why that you think it's a change order and put a price on it, which leads me and get it signed off on before you do the extra work, right? So another common situation that we deal with all the time is, okay, the subcontractor, think it's a change order. The general contractor does not agree with me. They think it's included in my scope of work and they're not going to approve a change order. Okay, so the best way I have found to determine this is that have it in writing via email, via text, however, is that, okay, you've asked me to do this. I think it's outside my scope of work. It should be extra. and here's the dollar amount it should cost, and here's why. So document your request for a change order for increased price very well, send it several times, have the discussion of why you think it's extra, and then if they still don't pay or don't agree that it's a change order, just hang on to it, and at the end of the project, we can work on, we'll send the notices and we'll file a lien to collect the amount that you're owed that was addition to the contract, right? And so the lien is really the leverage of getting the change order paid, because here's what can happen. You think it's a change order, you won't do the work, and then you get terminated for not working on the project like you're supposed to. And then you get terminated either for cause or for convenience, and now you're off the job, and they have to hire a new contractor, and it costs them more money, and now they're going to sue you because of that. So if you're terminated because you're going to stand your ground on this change order, it could really backfire and hurt you in the fact that that you have to continue working even if you disagree, right? And so, well documenting why you think it's extra, putting out there your dispute out there, and then filing a lien if we need to, right? So, if this happens, let's have a discussion what the lien rights look like in your state and when you would need to send your notices and get your lien filed. So make sure that that you do that beforehand. But that's the most effective way I have found to kind of combat the issue of, is it extra work, is it not extra work, and how do we handle that? Is go ahead and do it, well document it, and then file a lien if you're not paid, and we can kind of go from there. Again, just be very careful with these change order provisions on a commercial contract, and knowing what they are before you dive in, before you sign the contract. Guys, just reading your commercial contracts is a great idea generally. Even if you don't negotiate anything, just understanding the risk of what you signed and what you mean and what you're agreeing to, right? Because one misstep that you don't know could be very damaging, especially when we're talking about huge dollar amount contracts, right? This is not something that you want to take lightly. So, we do flat fee contract review. You can build that cost into your bid, so that way you can have some contract negotiation and kind of go from there. All right, so guys, this was a little tip about something I deal with all the time that I think is super relevant on change orders. If you have any other questions, you can reach out the website, or I'm always on Facebook, Karalynn Cromeens. Guys, I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you next time on the next episode. Hey, if you like this episode, please share it. Let other people know. Thanks.